24/7. I never missed a game from the day I came to the States, 1990, till 98. I watched everything. I was a Lakers guy. So I'm talking Nick Van Exel, Sedale Treat, if you know these names, Eldon Campbell. I can give you some lineup of guys we watched that
You're still a Pippen fan now, even though he went a little crazy.
He need to be quiet. Pippen need to shut up. Yeah, I love him now. His game, his game, but he tripping, thinking he was just as good as Mike.
The NBA's most famous sidekick just declared a war on its biggest stars. Scottie Pippen has broken his silence with a blistering, no-holds-barred attack, calling out LeBron James and Kevin Durant for what he calls a generation of disrespect toward Michael Jordan. This isn't about stats or rings. This is personal. Pippen is accusing today's kings of trying to rewrite history, and he's ready to burn it all down to protect his teammates' legacy. The league is on fire, and the man who helped build the dynasty
that was really what you believed in? How much of that was you trying to sell a book? And how much of that was somebody behind closed doors flattering you, saying you didn't get enough credit for what you did during the Chicago's run?
I think it's just me believing in myself in the way that I played the game.
Great player, gonna go down the Hall of Fame, but he's very selfish. He's been selfish. We would have had more championships and more success if it wasn't for him being so selfish. But he was told as a 16, 17-year-old in France
It wasn't a tweet. It wasn't a podcast soundbite. Scottie Pippen launched a full-scale media offensive, sitting down with a major sports network for a tell-all interview that felt more like a courtroom prosecution. The host asked a gentle question about the evolution of the game. Pippen leaned forward, his eyes sharp, and detonated the conversation. You want to talk about evolution? Let's talk about revision, Pippen began, his voice a low rumble of disdain. What I see today isn't players building their own legacy. It's a campaign, a calculated campaign to tear down the one true king so their stats look bigger in the history books. They sit on podcasts, they do these little Twitter spaces, and they wink and nod. Oh, the game is softer now. Oh, I could score 50 in that era. It's disrespect wrapped in a compliment. And the two worst offenders, LeBron and KD, they've built their brands on being the smartest guys in the room, but their entire argument is built on disrespecting the room Michael Jordan built. The interviewer, stunned, tried to interject about greatness being subjective. Pippen cut him off. It's not subjective, it's factual. You don't get to retrofit your game into an era you didn't play in and claim you dominate. That's fiction, that's fan fiction. And when the two faces of the league are the head writers of that fiction, it's a problem. They're not just playing basketball, they're running a propaganda machine against the past, and I'm here to shut it down. The clip exploded. Pippen declares war on LeBron and KD trended globally within minutes. This was far beyond typical old-school nostalgia. This was an accusation of intellectual dishonesty and intentional legacy manipulation from a Hall of Famer with nothing left to lose. He wasn't just defending his friend. He was acting as the prosecutor in the trial of modern basketball's conscience. Pippen's attack isn't coming from nowhere. It's the boiling over of a resentment that's been simmering for years, fueled by every sly comment and analytical tweet from the new generation. To understand his fury, you have to see the slights he's been collecting. The evidence is mounting. Subscribe to see the receipts.
The greatest of all time. I'm wondering, was it you fully believe? Because you made some arguments that, sometimes LeBron is a more complete player than Michael. You've had those types of discussions. Remember, I watch you. You don't watch me. I've watched you way more than you watch me. So I've seen you say stuff. You're Scottie Pippen. Yeah. You're not just a regular player that played in the game.
How far is the gap between the worst NBA player and the best non-NBA player?
The misconception is, you have people online talking so much trash about the 10th and
Scottie Pippen's fury isn't based on a single moment. In his interview, he laid out what he called a pattern of calculated disrespect, a case file built from years of subtle and not so subtle digs from the modern superstarocracy. He pointed first to the constant what-if scenarios. LeBron sits there and says, "I wish I could have played in the 80s and 90s to see how my game would translate." Pippen's voice dripped with sarcasm. Translation? He's saying his game is so complete it would transcend any era, including ours. It's a backhanded compliment that implies our era was just about toughness, not basketball IQ. And KD, he's worse. He goes on those Twitter spaces and talks about how defenders couldn't guard him because they couldn't hand check on the perimeter. He's not praising his own skill, he's insulting the defenders of my era, calling them slow and one-dimensional. They're not just comparing, they're testifying against us in the court of public opinion, and they're the star witnesses. Exhibit B, in Pippen's view, was even more insidious, the analytical dismissal. He attacked the modern use of advanced statistics to dismantle Jordan's aura. Now they've got all these bots and numbers guys saying, well, actually, Jordan's efficiency wouldn't be elite today, or his three-point shooting was a liability. You think LeBron and KD don't feed that machine? They surround themselves with yes men and stat heads who create this entire ecosystem where the only thing that matters is the spreadsheet, not the soul. They're using math to erase myth, but you can't put fear in a spreadsheet. You can't quantify the moment when a man knows he's been broken. They're trying to win a war with calculators against a guy who fought with flamethrowers. For Pippen, these aren't isolated comments. They are tactical strikes in a long-term, generational campaign to downgrade the past in order to elevate the present. Every hypothetical is a suggestion of superiority. Every analytic is a tool for deconstruction. He sees LeBron and KD not as students of history, but as its editors, and in his eyes, they are editing Michael Jordan right out of his own story. Pippen has presented his
Light, and there's a reputation that people in Los Angeles don't drink Miller Lite. Is this true or false, Ed?
I haven't seen a ton of it, to be honest, but you know, I'm pushing the cause, of course. Everywhere we go, honestly, that's like honestly a thing with us too. Like even in New York, like we're always like, dude, you guys need more Miller Lite. Like it's just like a fact. You guys like, there's too many bars you go to. It's like, where's the Miller? So,
back then, that shit was hard. So his bag is his Jelly Roll. So Jordan bag was very, very elite if you're looking at what his bag actually was.
Scottie Pippen's broadside did not land in a vacuum. It acted as a rallying cry, a long-awaited signal for a generation of players who have watched in simmering silence as their era was systematically picked apart by metrics and hypotheticals. One by one, voices from the 1990s battlefields began to echo Pippen's grievance, transforming his solo crusade into a chorus of condemnation. Charles Oakley was one of the first to amplify the message. In a radio interview, the former enforcer stated bluntly, "Scottie ain't lying. These guys today, they want the glory without understanding the grind. They talk about our era like it was a cartoon. They see the highlights, but they don't know about the elbows to the ribs on every cut, the fights in the paint that the refs let go. You think you're just walking into that? You think your game translates? Your game gets translated into a foreign language of pain you don't speak." Oakley's comments framed the dispute not as about skill, but about a fundamental misunderstanding of the sport's former brutality, a context they believe modern stars casually dismiss. Perhaps more impactful was the quiet agreement from those known for their diplomacy. Reggie Miller, a legendary competitor, tweeted a single Imi Shinshong phrase, "Context isn't a stat." When pressed, he elaborated on TV. When you talk about a player from our time, you have to talk about the rules, the style, the mentality. To pluck a player from today and say he'd average 40 then, it's a fun barbershop argument, but when it's used as a serious legacy argument, it disrespects everyone who played then. Scottie is right to call that out. Miller's stance gave intellectual heft to Pippen's emotional outburst, framing it as a defense of historical integrity. This rallying of the old guard did two things. First, it legitimized Pippen's attack, showing it wasn't the bitter rant of a single player, but the shared frustration of an entire generation feeling their lived experience being whitewashed by hot-take culture. Second, it applied immense social pressure on LeBron and KD. They were no longer just debating fans or analysts. They were being accused of collective disrespect by the very legends whose jerseys hang in the rafters they now play under. The court of public opinion was suddenly filled with hostile, respected witnesses for the prosecution. The pressure from the past is immense, but how will the present respond? The spotlight now swings to LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Will they engage, ignore, or escalate? Their first moves will define this war. The reactions from the two most criticized men on the planet are coming next. Don't miss their response. Subscribe.
Days to do this. So, Steph.
Okay. Question?
How would you like to see your mom raise that flag again?
I think that's it's basically the cherry on top. You know, just to know that the journey that me and my mom has been on, you know, throughout my 33 years, for it to all come to fruition today, and for her to raise the flag along a street where we struggled a lot when we were growing up. Like I said, we grew up and
I grew up a little disappointed that he didn't give more credit to the team as a whole. I thought the documentary, being that it was The Last Dance, would talk more about our team.
The basketball world held its breath, waiting for the two most scrutinized athletes on the planet to respond to a direct, personal indictment from a Hall of Famer. What followed was a masterclass in modern, contrasting crisis management that spoke volumes in its silence. Kevin Durant, ever the digital native and sensitive to perceived slights, responded exactly as Pippen might have predicted, through the veil of social media. He didn't post a direct rebuttal. Instead, he posted a series of 3 cryptic, rapidly deleted Instagram stories. The first was a meme of a person covering their ears with the caption, "When the past is yelling, but the future's on mute." The second was a screenshot of his own career scoring averages. The third, and most telling, was a single word in plain text on a black background: nostalgia. It was a full deployment of his preferred weapons: ambiguity, intellect, and a dismissive coolness. By calling Pippen's rage nostalgia, he reframed it as an emotional, irrational attachment to the past, a weakness of sentiment contrasting with his own data-driven, present-tense reality. He didn't defend himself, he pathologized his accuser. LeBron James operated on a completely different plane. He offered absolute, towering silence on the matter. Not a tweet, not a liked post, not a hint in a press conference. He was a black hole for the controversy. His response was delivered not with words, but with powerfully curated imagery. The day after Pippen's interview, LeBron's media company dropped a slickly produced mini-documentary on his YouTube channel. It had nothing to do with legacy or the 90s. It was a behind-the-scenes look at the opening of his newest I Promise housing complex in Akron, showing families receiving keys to their new homes. The message was implicit but deafening. You are talking about basketball debates from 30 years ago. I am building futures in the real world today. Your arena is the past. My arena is legacy. He elevated the conversation beyond the sport, making Pippen's attack seem small, parochial, and stuck in a dusty gym. These responses perfectly captured the dichotomy Pippen railed against. Durant used the tools of the modern age, social media, psychological framing, to dissect and dismiss the past. LeBron simply sidestepped the fight entirely, using his monumental off-court empire to demonstrate a form of impact and relevance that exists outside the debate entirely. One engaged on his own terms, the other rendered the terms obsolete. In their own ways, both responses validated Pippen's core accusation that they operate in a separate universe from the one he inhabits, one where the past is either a data set to be analyzed or a foundation to be built upon, but never a sacred text to be defended. The kings have spoken without saying a word, but the court of public opinion is still in session. The most damning testimony may come from the very fans and commentators who consume the game. The cultural divide Pippen exposed is about to play out in real time across media and fandom. The final verdict is being written right now. Don't miss the fallout. Subscribe.
I told you, man, it's 12 elbow jumpers, baby. And they was getting down the floor, they was hitting their spots, they was making their shots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I feel like the tone is like, it gets a bit boring, it gets a little redundant for you. It's not too exciting for you. But and I'm with you on that. What I enjoy most about this new Clips album is that it's the same brand of rapping the Clips have given us for 20 years.
Remember who my GOAT is?
Who is
LeBron?
I don't think there was anybody who dominated a period of time the way Michael Jordan did.
I think it's generational.
It's not generational. And I hate when people are like,
The clash between Pippen's Old Testament fury and the modern star's New Age dismissals didn't just split former players. It cracked open a fundamental fault line in the NBA's global fan base and media ecosystem. The controversy became a litmus test, forcing everyone to choose a side in a culture war over how sports history is valued. One side rallied behind Pippen with a visceral, defensive passion. This camp, dominant on classic sports radio and among older fans, framed the issue as one of respect and earned knowledge. Their argument was grounded in lived experience. You had to be there. They saw Durant's tweets and LeBron's silence as the ultimate confirmation of a sterile, corporate arrogance that valued brand over blood, sweat, and tears. Podcasts with titles like "Pippen Was Right, The Disrespect Must Stop" surged. Commentators argued that modern players, insulated by superstar treatment and advanced metrics, had lost the vocabulary to even understand the sacrificial, violent commitment of the 90s, let alone critique it. For them, Pippen wasn't being bitter, he was being the last honest historian in a room full of revisionists, a guardian of a truth that no spreadsheet could capture. The opposing side saw Pippen as the bitter embodiment of everything holding sports discourse back. On YouTube channels and analytics-driven websites, the take was clear. Pippen's outburst was the last gasp of an irrelevant generation. They celebrated Durant's nostalgia clapback as a brilliant, intellectual shutdown of emotional ranting. They praised LeBron's focus on community building as the mature, proper focus for a global icon, implying that worrying about 30-year-old slights was small-minded. This camp weaponized the very analytics Pippen scorned, creating detailed videos using advanced statistics to argue that the game is objectively more skilled and efficient now. They accused the old guard of using toughness as a mask for inferior skill and strategy, of clinging to mythology because the cold, hard numbers weren't on their side. This furious divide among fans and pundits became the real, enduring battleground. It was no longer just about Pippen, LeBron, and KD. It was a proxy war about how we judge greatness, through the raw, emotional lens of myth and memory, or through the dispassionate, data-driven lens of evolution and optimization. The players had moved on, but the culture war they ignited was just heating up, proving that the fight for legacy is never owned by the legends themselves. It is fought forever in the hearts and algorithms of those who watch them. The public war has been fought in the media and across social platforms, but what is the private cost? For Scottie Pippen, this was never just about basketball. It was about loyalty, brotherhood, and a debt he feels compelled to repay, no matter the consequence. The final chapter reveals the deeply personal stakes behind the explosive headlines. The real reason for his fury will change how you see this story. Subscribe for the conclusion.
And, to the fans out there, hey, tune in, tap that buy button, and get you a signed autographed Scottie Pippen Unguarded memoir. And we're going to be here tonight talking about the book. So, hey, tune in, stay there.
Yeah, and it's a great book. It's a great book, man. I got to commend you. You talked so much about the book when we sat down in June, July this summer, and we had that huge, explosive interview. And I was expecting some heat, and you brought some.
I had a brain surgeon on and a neuroscientist on, a guy who was both a brain surgeon and a neuroscientist. And I asked him, after studying the brain.
To dismiss Scottie Pippen's outburst as mere bitterness is to miss the profound personal engine driving it. This was not simply about basketball philosophy. For Pippen, this was the final payment on a debt of loyalty, a debt incurred in the shadow of the greatest player of all time. Throughout the Bulls dynasty, Pippen was the ultimate lieutenant, the flawless second star who sacrificed personal glory, money, and headline recognition to make the system and Michael Jordan work. He was the bridge between Jordan's mythic isolation and the team's success, a role that history has often simplified. In the years since, Pippen has watched his own legacy be periodically diminished, sometimes in the subtle background of Jordan's documentary The Last Dance, sometimes in the casual debates about Robin to Jordan's Batman. He has absorbed it, often with public grace, but seeing the foundational greatness of Jordan himself, the very mountain he helped build, being chipped away by a new generation, that was a line he could not let them cross. If Jordan's peak is lowered, then the entire era is lowered, and Pippen's own colossal contribution is diminished alongside it. His attack on LeBron and KD was, in essence, a fierce act of self-preservation and a final defiant act of allegiance. He was protecting the temple because his name is carved in its cornerstone. This context makes his disrespect framing so powerful. He wasn't just accusing them of being wrong, he was accusing them of being ungrateful heirs. In his view, they stand on the shoulders of the giants they're now trying to shrink. Their podcasts, their tweets, their analytical deconstructions are, to Pippen, the ultimate sign of disrespect, not just to Jordan, but to the entire collaborative struggle that built the platform they now command. His rage is that of a builder watching new tenants renovate the historic mansion and call it dated. In the end, the firestorm between Scottie Pippen and the modern kings reveals a timeless conflict, the protector of a sacred past versus the architects of an analytical present. Pippen fought with the only weapons he has left: passion, memory, and a fiercely loyal heart. LeBron and KD responded with the weapons of their era: curated silence, psychological framing, and transcendent off-court purpose. There is no clean winner. Instead, we are left with a clarifying divide. One side champions the intangible, unquantifiable soul of competition, the fear, the respect, the brotherhood forged in fire. The other champions progress, intelligence, and a new definition of impact that stretches beyond the hardwood. Pippen's last stand wasn't to crown a victor, but to force us to acknowledge that some things, like the loyalty of a lieutenant or the terror of a king, can never be captured in a tweet, a stat, or a hypothetical. They only live in the memory of those who were there. Whose side are you on? The protector of the